Hi everybody and welcome to miraclesofmind.tv. I'm your host Didi Verg, and our very special guest today is Kevin Laye. He comes all the way to us from the UK. Let me tell you a little bit about Kevin. He is an international trainer, public speaker, published Hay House author, and a featured guest therapist on both radio and TV. He is also the co-founder of the Meta Changework Practitioner Academy and CEO of Comtech. When he's not working as a hypnotherapist, Kevin is also a stand-up comedian and a mentalist, where he performs mentalism feats that are similar to that of Darren Brown. Kevin offers a variety of techniques online that he has developed, such as Psytap, and products to help you overcome everything from drinking with his books Positive Drinking for controlling alcohol consumption and Positive Shrinking for weight loss. If you're looking for hypnotic MP3 downloads, Kevin also has a unique set of therapeutic MP3s that addresses everything from insomnia and stress to weight loss. Today, Kevin is here to speak to us about what he calls evidence-based miracles.
That's right.
So, your earlier days were spent as a contractor in the Middle East and as a corporate sales director for a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
What is it that took you from there into hypnosis?
I was actually quite ill. I had a life-threatening condition with my kidney. My ex-wife is a surgical practitioner, and I was given 90% odds of not coming through the procedure because of the severity of it. And I came through, obviously I'm here, and in the intensive care unit, post-operatively, I was lying in bed in a lot of pain, like a phenomenal amount of pain. And the brother of a guy a couple of beds down from me who was quite terminal and not very well, but he was ex-military as well, like me, and we had the kind of gallows humour. He was like, "Oh, you still here this morning," kind of thing. And his brother came to the end of my bed one day and he said, "I understand you're in some pain." And I said, "Well, yeah, I am. What gave that away? The yelling and screaming?" And he's like, "Well, would you like to control the pain?" I said, "I can't have any more morphine." I had one of the control devices to give myself morphine. And I said, "They can't give me any more, otherwise they'd have to ventilate me. And they don't want to do that." I said, "So I can't have any more medication." He went, No. Would you like to control the pain?" And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Well, I can teach you some self-hypnosis and some other little simple techniques that will help you maintain the pain levels." Now, I'm an engineer and scientist by training, so my head just went, "I don't think so." Thanks, but yeah, no. And he went, "Okay." And he said to me, "Well, where are you going right now?" Well, I was lying in a bed with a drip in each arm, obviously, and wires everywhere. So I said, "Well, obviously nowhere." And then he asked me the most profound question. He said, "Well, what have you got to lose?" Okay, try, but I'll be uber resistant, and I think it's a crock and it's nonsense, and nah. Give it a go. Anyway, 30-40 minutes later, I was completely blissed out and totally relaxed and felt no discomfort. I slept well, obviously, that night, because when the nurses came in the morning to check my chart, "Morning, here's your breakfast," and I will check the chart. "Oh, you must be feeling better." Well, why do you say that? "Because you've not been clicking all night."
Oh, in your sleep?
Yeah, my machine. And I went, "Oh, so actually I do feel a lot better." And then my logical head kicked in and said, "Well, it's just the cascade effect of all the drugs. They've all built up, and we've hit that plateau point, and they've all come together. Good hit, for him last night." Anyway, he came in later on that day and sort of said, "Hey, how are you? You're looking a bit more relaxed." I went, "Well, strangely enough, so I am feeling better. So it could just be all the drugs." And yeah. He said, "You're right. It could be just the drugs. But yeah, this could be just a coincidence."
You see what we go through as hypnotists?
And I went, yeah. I said, "But yeah, I'm feeling better." He said, "Okay." He said, "No," he said, "as long as you feel better, that." He wasn't claiming anything. He said, that's the end point. He said, "I've got a book for you anyway," and he gave me a book called Frogs Into Princes by Richard Bandler. And he said, this is a book called Frogs Into Princes. It's all about neuro-linguistic programming. And he said, one of the co-creators, Dr. Bandler, said he's a scientist and mathematician, similar things to you. And I went, "All right, okay, so, well, this could be okay then." So I get the book, and I've got nowhere to go, obviously, and I've got nothing better to do, so I start reading this book, not realising at the time that the book is a transcript of a training. So I'm sat there and being practically minded, I'm trying the techniques on as I'm reading them. So I'm sat there thinking, okay, so if that bothered me, and it's like, now push it away and I'll grey it out and put like Vaseline over it and make it sound silly. God, it feels different.
It does.
Damn. Okay, next. Then I go on, so if I squeeze that finger and then squeeze that finger, and if that for feeling good, that for feeling bad, and then squeeze them both together, collapsing an anchor, I can't get the old feeling back. Wow, this is cool. So I read this book, I mean cover to cover, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Then my cynic's hat came back on again. I went, okay, I'm going to read it again, but this time I'm going to be hypercritical. I'm going to try and pick it all apart. So I'm reading the book for the second time.
Right.
So I'm about a third of the way through. Anyway, this guy walks in for the evening visiting session, sees his brother, and he went, he said, you getting on well with the book? I said, I've read it. I said, this is the second go. And he went, oh, right. I said, yeah. I said, I'm actually on the second go trying to find flaws and I can't. So it's a great book. I said, is there anything else out there like this? He went, I thought you might say that. Bang. And put about 15 books on the end of the bed, and I'm like, cool. So then I get all these books, Time for Change, Using Your Brain for Change, and Transformations, So I'm reading all these books, and this is fascinating. Transformations probably was the one that really got me into thinking about hypnosis more than anything. So I thought, okay, when I get out of here, I'm going to find a hypnosis course. This is pre-Google and being able to go and find. So I asked one of the kind of yellow pages, so I looked through the local yellow pages and hypnotist and does trainings. So I called this guy, I said, are you running courses? He went, yes I am. So I'm interested in coming on one. He went, yeah, good choice. And he said, you're looking to make it a profession? I went, well, not really. I said, I'm in sales and marketing. And if I can use these techniques to negotiate better and maybe clean up on a few deals, then sounds good to me. So I kind of went into it, if you like, for all the wrong and most duplicitous of reasons,
You wouldn't be the first.
Yes. I thought I might get laid more, I don't know, whatever. But I went into it for all the wrong reasons initially. And then...
It's nice of you to admit that.
Yeah, no. And then I became fascinated with it. I did well. And then I was very fortunate to meet Paul McKenna.
Right.
People
He's personally endorsed you, hasn't he?
Yeah. He wrote the foreword to my book. I'm one of only 3 people in the world that Paul McKenna recommends as a therapist. I've worked with Paul on stage many times on his shows and various other things. We did a phobia workshop together some years ago, and it was actually that phobia workshop that got me into therapy, because Paul and I used to talk, and one day he said, look, he said, why don't you do NLP? He said, I've read all the books, Paul. He said, no, he said, do NLP. I went, no, Paul, I've read all the books.
Yeah, it's much different when you actually do.
And he went, and then one night, because Paul and Richard are good friends, Richard was round at Paul's house, and I was round at Paul's house. I went round there, and there's Richard sitting on the couch, and I recognised him from the picture on the back of the book, although he was a bit craggier and a bit older. And I thought, okay, is this a setup or what? And then and Paul introduced me, and Richard said, he said, he said, you're the guy that doesn't want to come on the course. And I said, it's not I don't want to come on the course. I said, but I think it's a little bit redundant. I've got a good memory. I've got a very didactic brain. I remember things well. I can remember structures. And I said, no, I've kind of read everything and I've read other books as well. And Richard just sat there and went, okay, okay. So I understand. He said, do you fly? And I said, well, what, as a pilot or as a passenger? Because, I've actually trained as a pilot as well, so I can fly. I said, but as a passenger, quite frequently. And, okay, so he said, now, let's assume you get on a plane and you buckle in and they shut the door. And I thought, he's trying to install the phobia.
Yeah.
And I'm not...
And that's something Richard
Yeah.
would do.
Richard
Handler.
And
so
I'm not playing that game, so I'm like, no. And he went, okay. He said, no. He said, I know you think I'm trying to do something that I'm not thinking that you're doing. He said, but I want you to just listen to this. He said, and then you hear the captain come over the tannoy and say, hello passengers, my name is Captain Smith and I'm flying you to wherever we're going to today. And I have to tell you, just to reassure you, to completely reassure you that I've read every single manual that there is on the theory of flight.
I get where he's going.
I've read all the technical manuals on this particular aircraft. I've never flown before. And I went, okay, you win, I'll come and do your damn course. So I went on the course. He reframed it very elegantly, just changed the referential index really, really nicely. It's very elegant, nothing aggressive. And I'm like, okay, you proved your point, I quit. And I went and did the prac training and found that, he was absolutely right and Paul was absolutely right. You have to do the training. You can't get this stuff from books. You can't. And at the end of it, I decided on a flight up to Edinburgh to a meeting that we were having for the company. I was still working with the company at the time, that I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. Now, I was on £250,000 a year salary.
And that's back in the day.
It was a lot of money. This is 17 years ago.
It's more like $500,000 now.
And so I was earning very well. I had a great job. We had 93% market share. Life was good, LTD, living the dream. And I just went into the company that day. I just said at the start of the meeting, before we start today, guys, it was April the 3rd, I remember it. I said, this isn't a late April Fool's. I'm quitting. I'm leaving. And they were like, well, when did you decide this? I went about an hour ago on the flight up here. And they went, oh. And I said, I'm not going to change my mind. I don't know why I know, but I just know that I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not unhappy. Don't think there's anything that anybody's doing wrong. I love the company. I love my work. No, I know. I want to do something else. It's very bizarre, like a little epiphany that I had on the flight up there. Then I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder if Richard installed something when he was talking about flying. I don't know. But I quit. I walked away with a year's salary, so I was very lucky. I had that as a support mechanism for the first year. And then I thought, well, what do I do? Because I remember going home to my wife, I was married at the time, and said, oh, by the way, made quite an important decision today. She went, all right. She thought I'd done a big deal or something. And I said, I quit. And she went, what?
Yep.
And I went, yeah, so what are you going to do now? I said, I don't know, but everything will be okay. And she went, yeah, okay, fine. That's your direction. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? Well, I can train people. I can coach pretty well. I know business. Be a business coach. So initially I started off doing business coaching, mentorship, and particularly corporate recovery. Companies were struggling, failing, and I'd go in there, walk the floor for a couple of days, see where the problems were, looking at it dispassionately without buying into the energy of the problem, and usually come up with a good solution. And I did some good work with that. And then Paul wanted to do a phobia workshop and said to me, would I do it with him? So I went, well, yeah, okay then. If you trust me on stage with you, then fine. It's cool. So we did, and over the weekend, between two of us, we knocked out 180 phobias.
Wow.
Yeah. We had 180
180
in the audience, and we cleared them all. Apart from one lady who refused to the phobia had gone, but she refused to accept it. Massive secondary gain stuff going on there. That's a completely different story. But she was the only one that kind of said that we didn't. Everybody else walked out there like, wow, So we did really well. And then at the end of it, we sort of said, well, that was cool. Yeah, we're not doing that again. we never did. We never did it again because we were exhausted. It was hard work. Yeah. I trained up in the Havening, and Ron and I struck up a really good relationship, and I became the world's first Havening trainer. And then there's some.
What's Havening?
Havening is the one where you do the arm stroking, or you stroke the patient arm, and there is a whole bunch of neuroscience behind it. But luckily, because of Ron, he got me interested in neuroscience at a deeper level than I'd been before.
Okay.
And his challenge to me was, okay. This was May time. He said, I'm coming back to the UK in August. You need to understand the brain, and you need to understand the neuroscience around these procedures as well as I do to be the world's first trainer. So I had one of those oh shit moments. And like,
now I'm becoming a neuroscientist.
Oh dear, okay. So I got the books and studied, and got Robert Scare's, the Body Bears the Burden, Van der Kolk's work, Body Keeps the Score, and just neurology. I went on like YouTube, became my best friend. I didn't watch any movies or TV, and Netflix box sets were out the window. Just stuff on neuroplasticity, how the brain works. So I became fascinated in it. I looked at the whole thing and thought, why don't I just create a system based around what I do?
Okay.
And that's when I started on the journey with Psytap. And I thought, okay, well, I don't want to create a therapy system either. My background is, as I said before, is kind of engineering. So I wanted, if you like, to bring an engineer's mindset to dealing with problems. You know, just like a mechanic would look at a car not working, or an electrician would look at a circuit board as a problem that needs fixing. Why do we look at therapy like that? Why do we make it something that we have to sit and stroke our chin and talk about? Because I never liked that aspect of it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put a structure together now. I don't actually want to call it therapy. I want to call it psychosensory, because that's what it is. We have a psychodynamic reaction to sensory input. And let me start researching. So I started researching, and that was it. I was on a journey. And I then started looking as an engineer at things called toroid fields. Now, everybody around them has a toroid field.
Toroid?
A torus, T-O-R-U-S,
Okay.
which is like a donut-shaped field that surrounds us all. It generates from our heart. In fact, every single cell in our body has got one. The universe is one. The earth has one around it. A tree has one around it. An apple has one. You know,
Like an aura?
you can call it that, but it's not that.
Okay.
It's way more than that.
Sure.
And this is something measurable with, you know, heart math, and I'm a heart math trainer. Heart math use magnetometers to measure the heart's
Right.
energy field. It's a toroid field shape. It's this sort of, looks like an apple in cross section. And I then started to bring Callahan's work with my knowledge of quantum theory, standard physics and engineering, and the neurology and neuroscience brought into it. So I'm not a patient man, and I don't want to do that. And I looked at the fast phobia core, and I remember when I trained with Roger, and I showed him, and he went, yeah, but why they call it fast? Because it's 15, 20 minutes.
That's still pretty fast if you can get rid of a phobia someone's had for 25 years.
TFT's 2 minutes. You know, I've now got it down to a minute.
Okay.
I've now got it down to, so, yeah.
TFT can get rid of a phobia?
Yeah, totally. And Roger's first book was called The 5-Minute Phobia Cure. I've done thousands of phobias using TFT, and trauma, and PTSD, and physical pain. And TFT is amazing. It's way underrated. And EFT is completely different. They are completely different things.
Okay.
EFT works, and if you're a good practitioner, you'll get great results. I'm just saying that what I chose was a very systemized process, and I've now got down to a very clean, very simple system. And going back to the anger, for example, if I say, you know, if people are going to be watching this, then if you can think of something that can make you angry and generate it in your mind now, you know, rate it on a SUD scale of 1 to 10, or however you want to do it, and measure it in your mind, and then think about it, and whatever number it is, just hold it in your mind, and then just do this. Just take 2 fingers of one hand and push down on your little finger of the other hand like this. That's all you have to do. Once you've done that, okay, then try and generate the anger, and you'll find it's impossible. Not because of any therapy, but because of a technique that disables your ability to make a fist.
And if you can't make a fist?
If you can't make a fist, neurobiologically, you cannot get angry.
And explain to people how repeating this every time they get angry, what it does
Well,
to the
what
brain.
then happens is, you see, we're not disabling your ability to get angry. I mean, I can still get angry if I want to, or I now have a choice to do that. There are times when it's appropriate to be angry. And there's other times when it's very inappropriate, and I want the choice to be able to do it or not, which is why anger management tends to suppress it and push it down, whereas this is, I have the option. You know, I dropped some eggs on the floor at home about 3 weeks ago. It went ballistic. For about 5 seconds, went nuclear. And then thought, you know, air was blue, did that, and then thought, I've just made an omelette. You know, because they all broke in the box. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just stick it on. I've got two omelettes, you know, no biggie, and I can go back to the shop. I need the exercise to go and get some more eggs. So, you know, a little reframe. So it's very, very simple. So that gives you control over anger, because you cannot make a fist. If you cannot make a fist, the signal goes back into your dentate gyrus, part of your hippocampal structure. That then sends through the cingulate gyrus into the amygdala, the message kind of going, I'm not recognizing the pattern here, I can't get angry.
Okay.
Or you can drop your jaw. and relax that as well. Because if you can't clench your teeth, you can't do anger or you can't do rage either. Because you need to be able to clench your jaw to do rage. So again, 1 second anger management, rage management, drop your jaw.
And I know
they're so fast.
We were discussing earlier, but not only for anger, you have things for worry, for anxiety. This is all included in the Psytap.
Yeah, it's all included in the Psytap.
Okay.
In the Psytap
and
training.
This is all scientifically validated.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of science. I don't teach anything unless I've got. It looks very woo-woo, but I don't teach anything unless I've got the science behind it. Another thing that we discovered is I can knock out stress, and I mean knock out stress, not manage it. Disable your ability to be stressed in 30 seconds. And the reason why you can't, again, scientifically, neuroscientifically, is we're triggering the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, both of which will release, well, the pineal gland will release melatonin, which is going to help you feel sort of sleepy. But the other thing is the pituitary gland will release oxytocin, large amounts of it. When your system is flooded with oxytocin, there is literally no space for cortisol.
This is good for people trying to get away from drugs.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
opiates.
Yeah. Well, there's something else you can do actually, which is another technique that I developed, which is a little eye rub thing, which actually releases serotonin.
Wow.
As well.
And this is all you've done research on it, and you've
There's tons of research, and we create a lot of intuitive work around it. So you don't have to follow the algorithms specifically. It's more intuitive, and it's more kind of tuning into the toroid field of the client. Because when we're interacting with somebody like you and I are now, our toroid fields have kind of looped over like that, and we're sharing a space here. People call it sharing in, like Reiki shares and things like that, energy sharing, whatever. But we can actually see this. There are magnospectric images now that can actually show these fields, and that's how your heart math know that the heart field is bigger than the one in the brain.
Right.
Massively bigger. And that's, I think it's 5 feet. Is the current metric on it. Right. Now, that doesn't mean the heart thing goes out to 5 feet. That's just the capacity of the magnetometer to measure it at the moment. Right. It can only measure it to 5 feet. It doesn't stop at 5 feet. It goes on, and it doesn't stop. So when we do things like remote healing, and when we actually teach this, and I'll do it in my talk on Sunday, is somebody in the room is bound to have some neck or back or shoulder pain or whatever. I will simply ask them to hold the hand up like this and close their eyes and just go inside for a moment, and across the room from 30, 40, 50 feet, I'll take the pain away. It's bizarre, and it looks very woo-woo. However, once you explain the science behind it and the elements that we're working with, you have to literally sit there and go, oh yeah, damn, that's obvious. Yes, it works.
Is that part of your Psytap as well?
That's part of the Psytap, yeah. And
so it's remote.
Now all my students at the end of the 3 days are able to do this. Now we can do other things. We can look at body polarity, and we have devices. We use an electrician's voltmeter, a standard off the shelf from Maplin's or whatever the equivalent is in the US, standard sort of. And you can put the black probe, the common, on the thumb, and you can put the positive on the back of the hand or anywhere on the body that there's an injury or anything like that. And if it shows negative millivolts, that part of the body or the whole body is in a state of what we call psychological or polarity reversal. We then do this, we tap on the side of the hand, and then you put the probes back on exactly the same place, and you watch it go into positive.
But would their emotional state bring it back?
No.
Again? Oh, it fixes it.
It clears it out. So we have very empirical information and evidence as to why this is working. I do a little thing, it's what we call haptic techniques, and people say, well, haptics. Well, Stanford Research are looking at haptic technology at the moment based around sort of robotics. Haptics is feedback, and we have, it's almost like self-dowsing, but it's more than that. It's you're kind of using your body as a pendulum, but it's way more than that. And people sort of say, well, you're just telling yourself to do that. No. Again, we've got a handheld dynamometer that you can squeeze it, and if you make a false statement, it will be less strong or have less strength than if you make a true statement. And you can't fake this thing.
And just so our audience knows, what you're talking about is your unconscious. That would be like a pendulum.
like a pendulum, yeah.
like a pendulum, your unconscious will reveal, or muscle testing.
Well, muscle testing,
So
same thing, yeah.
So muscle testing is when, you get a yes or a no, and
Yeah.
if your arm drops easily, it's because your unconscious sending a signal, it's cutting off the signal to your muscle. So
yeah. So we incorporate all this. It's kind of the best of the best of. It's Top Gun stuff. So we bring it all in and we kind of weave it together over the 3 days, and then.
So tell us about ComTech, because that's another
ComTech.
one of your babies.
Yeah, well, again, it kind of.
Tell us how that evolved.
It was born out of a very, very sad situation. I had a good friend of mine, ex-army friend of mine, that had gone to live in Singapore with work, and he married a Chinese wife, and they'd had a child, and he was away a lot, and the mum being a bit of a tiger mum, I guess, and I don't mean that in a negative term. She wanted the best for her son, but the son was under a lot of pressure, also being a little bit bullied at school, and he decided at 17 that he'd had enough, and he took his own life, and it devastated my friend who called me in a very bad place, and I felt for him, and I thought, well, okay, with all the skill sets that I've got and what we know about, and this is going back some years way before Psytap and some of the other stuff, it's why can't we put something together that can help children initially over this? And we created a product called Exam Aid. It's a bit like a Band-Aid tin that you literally open up. Although if I do this technique, then I'll minimise my stress. So we did it, and we did early studies and early trials, and the findings were good. The stats, and because people always say, well, where's the evidence? Well, we have stats that have come from Sir Michael Dixon, who's the head of the College of Medicine and a professor at Peninsula Medicine in the UK. He's a highly qualified doctor. He tried this at his integrative centre in Columpton, and the stats show on the tables that 90% of people who go on it get a 75% or greater reduction in stress in less than 10 minutes, and that's maintained with what they call good effect over a 3-month period.
Okay, and this is an app? Is that correct?
And what it is, it's an app. So basically, you don't need to go and see a therapist. And I'm not putting people out of business. What I'm saying is that it's 24/7, never stops going. So you can go onto this app, and you can. We have different ones now. We have driving, we have dentals, we have one for mums to be that are stressed and worried. We're having a business one. We've got calm zone, which is our generic umbrella one. So we're developing variants of it all the time, and that's keeping me pretty busy at the moment. Yeah,
and
yet
what are the
you can't
long-term statistics for this?
The long-term.
You said you did research that. After 3 months?
Yeah, after 3 months, they have what is termed by the NHS and the National Health Service as sustained good effect. So when they came back in 3 months later, and they said, well, how's your anxiety or how's your stress now? They went, it's fine.
Yeah. So literally, you can work with current stresses in less than 6 minutes, and the long-term effect is it just gets rid of it.
Wipes it out, yeah. Again,
that's fantastic.
Again, what I think is the neuroplasticity effect comes every time you think about it, you can't get it. That gets synaptic pruning as you sleep at night.
You're breaking a cycle too. You're breaking a cycle, and you're putting something new in.
Better,
calmer.
Yeah, and the brain picks that up, and we'll utilise that totally.
Okay, so let's talk about some miracles. Now you call them evidence-based miracles.
Yeah.
What's the difference between evidence-based miracles and what? Well, just call miracles.
Because I'm provocative, and I have this thing. I have the what science can't give an explanation to, it calls a miracle. And one of the other phrases is science is the yoga of the West, and yoga is the science of the East.
Okay.
So let's kind of look at why these kind of work and weave. I mean, let's look at Brazil, for example. With the Rio Games and everything, over 86% of doctors in Brazil practice an alternative therapy as well as conventional medicine. And they are making incredible breakthroughs.
Right.
Incredible breakthroughs.
They're very open-minded.
Absolutely and totally. And they have some amazing things happening there.
So what have you seen? What have you seen, whether evidence-based or not? What have you seen? You've been practicing for 15 years.
I've had people with chronic, there are testimonials, there are video testimonials out on YouTube everywhere, and they're there. And I like videos because people will accuse you of writing your own testimonials. So if it's on video, it's on video. I've had people that have had the most chronic pain for years and years and years and years and years, and within one session, and often within a couple of minutes, the pain's gone and it's stayed gone. I've had people with chronic PTSD, and again, I did a TV documentary for Channel 4 in Sweden some years ago about a lady who had chronic PTSD based around abuse as a child, and she'd been everybody, counsellors, therapists, psychotherapists, TA, everything, you name it. She'd gone through and medication and self-medication with alcohol and various other things. I tapped her once in session on camera, and the PTSD collapsed in front of the eyes of myself and the girl herself and the camera girl who sat there jaw wide open, and the producer of the film literally scratching his head, kind of going, "Oh my God!"
And it never came back again.
Never came back.
Wow.
Never ever came back.
You're the king of speed.
It's all about speed. I remember Richard Bandler once saying that if you get a sheet of metal, a big sheet of metal, and you bend it slowly like this and let it go, it will just go back to how it was. It conforms back to its old shape because of the memory.
Right.
If you do that again, it will just kind of go back. Do that, and it snaps.
Collapse it, right.
It's right down the ridge. And if you try and push it back how it was, you can't. You've fractured it at a molecular level. And that's what we're doing with this technology and with these techniques. It's getting in there and it's changing things so fast that the brain kind of goes, "Whoa, what happened?"
And it's done.
It's over. Literally,
It's like a piece of metal.
Yeah, because again, if the amygdala is firing off neurotransmitter thoughts that are running at 186,000 miles a second, they're working at the speed of light. Part of the sympathetic nervous system, its reactions when we feel threatened, is to blow the pupils wide.
Right.
Now we have a system in Psytap called VCAR, visual coding and repatterning techniques. And what we do that is we get a light pen, and put it in front of the eyes. It looks like EMDR, but it's not. It's way past that. We trace the lemniscate shape. We tag where the problem is and where they feel calm, and then we collapse the anchor, if you like, between it, if you want to use the NLP terminology. And then we sort of say, okay, close your eyes. We then use a strobe with the eyes closed, as long as they're not epileptic, obviously.
Sure.
And then we use a strobe effect, and then say, okay, open your eyes now. Try and think of the anxiety. Try and think of the problem. Try and think of the trauma. Try and think of the addiction. They sit there, kind of going, can't.
Oh, I want to learn how to do
A
this.
common statement is, it feels like somebody's got an eraser on a whiteboard
Right.
and just wiped it all off. It's just
Right,
gone.
right.
Now, the reason that happens is your amygdala is trying to fire off a signal, kind of going, this is where you panic. And as it's doing that, it's got a counter signal coming from a bright light that's making the pupils, instead of blowing wide, collapse.
I get it.
They shrink.
Yeah. Right.
So every time the pupils are trying to do that, they go, they can't. And again, it's like this. If you can't do a process, the brain
disrupting the
the
physiology.
brain responds
Yeah.
by going, I can't do it anymore.
Brilliant.
And that's how fast it works. It's bingo instant.
What did you call this one? Sorry.
I call it VCART. It's a VCART. It's visual coding and repatterning technique, because we're coding where the problems are,
Right.
we're collapsing it, and then we're repatterning it with the strobe.
Amazing.
So it's the
Is that a
most
training you offer, or is it a product?
it's part of Psytap.
Oh, this is all part of Psytap.
Part of the Psytap process, yeah. So you learn this, you learn the finger things, you learn some tapping. We teach sort of rapid linguistic patterns, that Richard developed and created using confusion strategies and phonological ambiguities and various levels of just to get in there and just mess the brain up, so it kind of goes, I give up, no, stop it, all right, I can't think about it anymore.
Okay, so Psytap is where it's at for sure.
It's fast.
Tell us more. What other?
Well-
Trauma. You talked about trauma earlier.
Well, again,
Fast.
trauma requires four things. Trauma requires the event itself to happen. You have to attach a meaning to it, in that this is bad for me, it's dangerous, potentially threatening. You have to have a vulnerable landscape in your brain. If you're all resilient, then you kind of go, it's what it is. Some people are super resilient. It's
That's
like,
me.
whatever. Yeah, some people are.
I can't get traumatized for anything.
And you have to have this sense of inescapability.
Right.
I don't want to be here, but I can't get away from it. At that moment, the glutamate receptors on the lateral amygdala go, they fire up.
Right.
Alert, alert, alert. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. If they stay in that state for too long and you start to ruminate over the issue and they keep blowing out and blowing out, a chemical creeps in and sits in there like that. It's a phosphokinase, and what it does, and this is something that Ron Rudin developed with the Havening process, and you kind of use sort of Joseph Ledoux's work as well. But when these glutamate receptors try and collapse back to a normal state, they're stuck. They can't. And that's why people are stuck in their state of trauma. That's one element of it. The second element of it is we've now got to look at the dominance of the hemispheres. And Ian McGilchrist wrote a great book called The Master and His Emissary, the master being the right brain, the emissary being the one that serves as the left brain. And if somebody, say, has PTSD, it's a right brain condition. If somebody has depression, it's a right brain condition. I call it the Stephen King brain, or the Stephen King half of the brain, which generates the horror over and over and over again. The problem is when it does this, there's no time, there's no temporal state to it. It's happening now in the head. That's why people have night terrors. That's why people have day terrors, and they just sit there rocking sometimes or ruminating about the issues. The moment you can get this to go across the corpus callosum into the left hemisphere, and you can kind of time code it with some logicity, it then goes back over and it says, look, it's not happening now. It collapses.
Collapses it, right.
It collapses it instantly.
Fascinating.
It's just a neurological form, if you like, of collapsing anchors. But it's just fast, it's elegant, and again, because, and then what I do, I always challenge the client, I say, okay, think about the PTSD now, or I will say, tell me about it again. And they sit there and they can't, or if they do use the words have got no passion anymore.
Right. They've got no
They've
emotion.
completely, they're disassociated from it now. And that's what we're doing with it.
So in the end, all this studying you've done and all this science behind it and knowing the brain the way you do and knowing NLP and hypnosis along with Psytap, are there any limitations to what's possible?
At a quantum physics, quantum theory level, no. Because I've now started to look at the application of what they call Fournier's theorem and bringing that into it, which is way too complex to go into also. But it's what else can I find out about and what else can I bring in, and just how fast can we get? And like I say, I did this phobia workshop recently, one of my own.
Tell us, you're down to like 4 minutes with a phobia, 5 minutes?
Under a minute.
Under a minute.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so
yeah. I've done phobias in like 10-15 seconds with a light pen. So
with the light pen,
can't
that's
go.
part of the Psytap.
Yeah.
So anything's
not
possible, basically.
Yeah.
Especially when we combine science, technology,
Yeah.
and these techniques.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank
Totally.
you for being here today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Been great. Thanks.